an honor and a delight to have with us today David Rubin. He is the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, which is a little small town over on the West Bank. He can tell us about that. And he's also the author of his latest book, which is quite frankly very groundbreaking. It's called The Islamic Tsunami, Israel and America in the Age of Obama. Wow. And David, what an honor to have you, sir. Where are you this morning?
Well, thank you. I'm here in Shiloh, Israel.
Wow.
In the heart area.
What time of day is it over there?
Oh, right now it's a few minutes after 6 p.m.
Okay. Well, thank you. We are honored, and thank you for your time. We are praying for you and Israel and your leadership. Can you give us an update? What's happening there?
Well, right now it's a very tense time. There's a lot of uncertainty in the air. The situation is basically that after 8 years of missiles from the Hamas terrorist organization being fired at Israeli cities, and I might add missiles from the Islamic Jihad terrorist organization as well being fired at Israeli cities, Israel finally has said, that's it, we're not going to take it anymore. And there are tens of thousands of Israeli soldiers massed down in the southwest region, the southwest coast of Israel, which is called Gaza, and that's where all the missile fire is coming from. And we're just waiting to see what's going to happen. As expected, we've had a procession day after day of foreign leaders coming to try to convince Israel to agree to a ceasefire, which basically would mean that Hamas wins. We let Islamic terrorism win if we agree to a ceasefire before doing what we set out to do. That would be the biggest mistake that we could make.
All right, so nothing has been negotiated yet, and what is ceasefire? Is it really a reload and start again?
Absolutely. We've been in this movie before. You have to understand that. In the year 2009, at the beginning of 2009, we had the first Gaza war. When Israel went into Gaza to stop the missile fire. Again, it was from the Hamas terrorist organization. It was mainly the Islamic Jihad. And the troops went in, the ground troops went in, and then they went out, and then they went in, and it went on for a few days, and then I would say about halfway into the process, without achieving any of the military strategic goals, the government then of Prime Minister Olmert agreed to a ceasefire under American pressure and under UN and European Union pressure. And because of that ceasefire, within a few months, the missiles were starting to fall on Israel again. And why did that happen? Well, there were several months of no missiles falling on Israel. But during that time, the Hamas terrorists were working furiously, smuggling weapons in through the underground smuggling tunnels that they built between Egypt and Gaza. So this is the situation. For the past 4 years, those missiles, those weapons, those bombs have been smuggled in these underground tunnels into the Gaza region, and there's nothing that Israel can do about it without being there. The only way that you can stop this is by being there. Yes, if you send in the ground troops or you have this massive land war, then you can destroy some of these tunnels, but they will be rebuilt within about a year's time. Unless Israel is down there, unless Israel takes control of the areas where those smuggling tunnels are, that is the only way we're going to stop it.
All right, boy, you've unleashed a lot of questions here. Let me ask you this: is this considered a declaration of war on Israel from Hamas? And if so, why at this time? We've been told that it may be somewhat of a subterfuge of Israel going in to Iran.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Look, when the prime minister and the defense minister and the cabinet decide that Israel has to go into Iran and launch that long spoken about preemptive strike against Iran to stop their nuclear bomb program, it's going to happen.
Right.
And it's going to happen whatever else is going on around us. What prompted this is that shortly after, almost immediately after the American elections, we saw an upturn in the frequency of these missiles being fired from the Hamas in Gaza. And it increased more and more every day until it just reached the point where it was unbearable.
Mm.
Whether it's connected to the American elections or not, we don't have any documented proof. But it seems to me like a fairly logical thing that they felt that Obama was reelected and he's more favorable towards the Islamic world, less favorable towards Israel, and that they would have someone who would kind of look the other way, and perhaps Israel would also look the other way. Well, it's not that situation. Fortunately for Israel, we do have elections scheduled at the end of January. On January 22nd, we'll see if those elections will actually come off or if they'll have to be delayed because of the war. But I think that because of those elections coming up, the prime minister felt like he had to do something, that he couldn't just sit tight and wait while the missiles are falling on Israeli cities. Something had to be done.
Does the prime minister have the support of the people in this defensive action?
In terms of the air war, absolutely unqualified support, almost across the board. When it comes to sending in the ground troops versus agreeing to a ceasefire, there is a majority that's in favor of a ground operation. Yes.
Is the ground operation inevitable if you're going to take out these tunnels and stop the flow of arms?
It's absolutely inevitable. There is no way to get around it. If we agree to a ceasefire now, then we're only going to be back in this movie again 6 months to a year from now. There's no way to avoid it. It has to be done. And frankly, it's not just in the south where the Hamas is ensconced. All you have to do is look up at Lebanon in the north, where we have the Hezbollah terrorist organization, also being heavily supported by Iran, and they have amassed an even greater number of missiles pointed at Israeli cities with a greater range of distance. So I've been saying for about 2 years now that a war is coming. There was no way to avoid it. It had to happen, and now we're in it.
Your book, The Islamic Tsunami, Israel and America in the Age of Obama. Are you folks surprised that Obama got reelected?
No, we're not surprised. I can't say that we're thrilled. Look, I'm not a politician at this point, and I can really say what I think. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister and many others can't. The fact is that President Obama has been the most hostile president towards Israel in many, many years, and it's quite sad because the relationship with Israel and the United States should be very close. We should be closely bonded because of our common heritage. We're both countries with deep biblical roots, and the United States is a country that's built with roots that are rooted deeply in the Hebrew Bible. So that's something that people should remember. I'm not surprised that Americans as a whole do stand with Israel. I know that there's tremendous support for Israel, especially in the Republican Party. The Democratic Party, I'm sorry to say, seems to be moving in a very different direction. And unfortunately, a lot of the country seems to be moving in that direction. And I think it's very important for those in America who are conservative and who are Christians, I think that it's very important to be working very hard at strengthening that connection with Israel and passing along your heritage to next generation, because that's the way you're going to change America back to what it once was.
Well, again, I just want you to be assured that the vast majority of the faith community in this country does not agree with this president and their policy concerning Israel, even though our Secretary of State is on the ground there now saying that it's rock solid. I hope it's more than words. I hope it's followed up with some kind of action. But the faith community in this country is on their knees in behalf of Israel, and especially now in this time that it appears that you're going to go into an extended war. I just don't see a peace treaty of any kind or even a ceasefire that works. Do you?
No, no, absolutely not. What I see happening is, well, first of all, we have Secretary of State Clinton here in Israel. I think she just traveled to Egypt. She was in Ramallah today, in Samaria, which is not too far from where I live. In fact, I had to stand in bumper-to-bumper traffic for about a half an hour to let her pass. She's now in Egypt. She went to visit the Muslim Brotherhood president there, Mohammed Morsi. And then I don't know whether she's going to come back to Israel and try to pressure more, or whether she'll go back to the United States. I suggest that she go back to the United States and have a good turkey dinner and let Israel handle its own problems. And I think that we can meet the challenges here. We know what we need to do. Most Israelis are aware that what we need to do is send in the ground troops to clean up that hornet's nest. And we know that there are many, many Americans that will stand with us when we do that.
Now, as you go in, and if you do get involved in a ground war and taking out, you're called the hornet's nest and those tunnels and everything else, in the long run, isn't that also a strategic military move in case you do, if and when you go into Iran, that you've weakened those areas as some kind of a retaliation against Israel?
Oh, certainly. It would be much harder for Hamas to cause problems for us if we have a conflict with Iran. The Hezbollah in Lebanon, on the other hand, can cause a lot of problems for us. They're very well stocked in missiles, even more than the Hamas. They have a longer range of their missiles, and so we have the northern front to worry about as well. But certainly, when you weaken one terrorist organization and you weaken them for the long term, for the long haul, then you're also weakening the other terrorist organizations, and you're weakening Iran at the same time.
Does Israel have the resolve and the military supply for a long-term engagement?
The resolve, I absolutely believe that we have. The morale of the country and the soldiers is very high at this moment. And whether it needs to be a long military conflict, I'm not sure. I don't think that we need to be in a military conflict by the American standards of Iraq and Afghanistan. I believe in going in, doing the job quickly, and getting out, and or doing the job quickly and destroying them completely and staying there, which would be my preferable option. The idea of going into a country and having to stay there for a year or 2 years to keep all your troops in there doesn't make sense. The idea is to go in, take control, and then let most of the troops leave. And that would be my prescription for success. I would also say that we should look at the model of 1967, the Six-Day War. When Israel went in, we took control of the biblical heartland of Israel, Samaria and Judea and eastern Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights and the Sinai Desert and the Gaza region. We took control of all these areas in 1967 in a defensive war. We won the war in 6 days, and on the seventh day we rested because the seventh day was the Sabbath. This is not an ordinary country that we're talking about, Israel. We're talking about a religio nation, a nation that is God's chosen people, and we have a mission here in the land of Israel that I think needs to be carried out, and that mission needs to be carried out as soon as possible. And when our enemies come up to destroy us, we're supposed to go and destroy them first, and that's what we need to be doing here, not waiting for Hillary to come again and waiting for Muslim Brotherhood haters of Israel to come and visit, and waiting for the head of the UN, who's even just as much of a hater of Israel, to come visit us and tell us what we can and can't do. I think we need to act like a sovereign nation, a nation that is following our historical biblical guidelines, and go in and do what we need to do.
Boy, that is so refreshing. I'm hearing also you say that perhaps that decision has been made. In other words, no longer will Israel be pressured by the UN or even the United States. They will defend themselves as a sovereign nation, and with or without them.
I would like to think that that decision has been made. No, I don't think so. I think that there is a bit of a disagreement within the Israeli cabinet about what to do, how soon to go in, and how hard to go in. And unfortunately, many of the leaders of Israel, many of the leading politicians in Israel, don't look at things through biblical guidelines, through
Right.
biblical glasses, and that's the problem. They look at things at the situation through rose-colored glasses, where they're seeing all of these arch enemies of Israel, kind of, being convertible. That we can convince them that we just want to be friends, and it's a big mistake, because they're not going to be. The purpose of Ishmael, of the Arab Muslim nation, has always been to destroy Israel, and it's going to be that way for a very long time, until we make it clear that we're not going to go for it, and that we're not going to compromise in any of these ridiculous peace plans in which they expect us to give away chunks of our biblical heartland in order to create another terrorist state within our midst.
Two questions then come out of that. It appears that before Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was reelected, he did a lot of speaking in the United States, and primarily in churches that understand the biblical heritage of both Israel and the United States, but in particular the subject of eschatology. So he understands where we may be in God's overall clock. How do you respond to that?
Well, I'm not sure to what extent he believes in that. They may be good talking points when you're speaking to Christians. I would like to think that he believes in it a little bit more. I speak in churches throughout the United States all the time, and my feeling is that when I see all of the Christians who support my organization that helps terror victims, the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, I know that the Christian communities are behind us, that a large part of the Christian America certainly stands with us, and many in Europe as well. And I would like to believe that the Israeli cabinet and the Prime Minister understands as well that we can't turn back, that we're not turning back the clock. We're not going back to having a truncated state. The land of Israel has been given back to us by the Almighty. We need to protect it, and we need to rebuild it.
All right. Before I let you go, David, tell us about Shiloh Israel Children's Fund and how people can support your work.
Well, the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund was started after a terrorist attack 10 years ago, when my 3-year-old son and I were wounded. I was shot in the leg. He was shot in the head. We both survived the attack. The bullet went into his head, missed his brainstem by 1 millimeter, and we survived miraculously. By the way, I wrote about the details of that attack and that miraculous miraculous survival in both of my books, The Islamic Tsunami and God, Israel, and Shiloh. As a result of the trauma that we experienced, and that my son experienced in particular, I started the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund to create therapeutic healing programs and educational programs for all of the children here in the biblical heartland of Israel, focused in the area of the Shiloh or Shiloh Township. And people can just go to our website, which is shilohisraelchildren.org, www.shiloh, S-H-I-L-O-H, israelchildren.org. And they can get more information and they can partner with us.
All right, and check out the Islamic Tsunami on Amazon, as well as God, Israel, and Shiloh on Amazon to get his books. And again, that's shilohisraelchildren.org. David, thank you so much. You're in our prayers. Thanks for your time today. We value it greatly and hope to have you back real soon.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
God bless you.